Thank you to Jeremy and the organisers for putting on tonight's event. Before I make a couple of comments, I also would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we mainly sit tonight. Pay my respects to any elders who may be here with us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, for coming out to tonight's event. Right, I've got my stopwatch going. We're meant to only talk for 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes and counting. So while I just give some framework to the connection I have with this whole proposal, I do actually have some supportive friends in the room with some clipboards with attendance sheet on them. So I would very much appreciate if you could fill in your personal contact details so that I, in my capacity as a member for local area, can ensure that I can communicate directly with you around this proposal. We do have a long way to go in terms of the process, and there are a lot of steps and stages, and I would really value the opportunity to make sure that I can keep you directly updated. So there are clipboards that will be sent around, so if you wouldn't mind putting your details on, that would be great. Okay, 4 minutes to go. So ladies and gentlemen, I first heard of this proposal in December of last year when the proponent sent somebody to introduce me to the concept, and I recall that meeting very, very distinctly because looking at the diagram, there were these very two large smokestacks in the diagram, and this particular person was saying that there will be no emissions, it's clean, etc. And I asked the question, well, what are the two smokestacks for? And he couldn't answer the question, and he kind of went around it, and I said, no, sorry, excuse me. I said, you're telling me one thing. I said, but your diagram is indicating something very different. And I had to ask him at least 5 times, and he got to the point where he then his shoulders dropped, and he said, look, I actually don't have the answer for you. And he got on his phone and he rang somebody. And as of December of last year to today's date, I still do not have answers to those questions. Now, whether it's they don't want to tell me, as we've seen demonstrations tonight as to potentially what we're looking at, or they don't have the answers, I'm not sure. But from that point, I thought this is quite alarming. And so for what I've been doing, a couple of things, just wanted to update you. I do an annual survey of my community, and this year in that survey I specifically asked the question, do you support this particular technology? In order to gain feedback, I need to hear from you, from my community, and take that information back to my colleagues in Parliament. That survey information is coming in, it's feeding in. Roughly statistics, there are 2 to 1, 2 against in favour of 1 in support of it, so 2 to 1. In terms of the support, I just think they probably don't really understand exactly what's involved, but that's another side. So when it got to February and Parliament resumed, and I still hadn't had specific questions provided to me, I then thought, all right, I'm a little bit concerned, very much concerned now. So I began working with the Minister for Planning, Minister for the Environment, to make sure they were directly aware of the proposal, of the concerns I had, and the concerns that were feeding into my office, that a lot of the community were against this proposal. So the Minister for Planning confirmed that they will be selecting an expert person to assess the claims of the proponent, because I'm not a scientist. I'm a physiotherapist, but I'm not a scientist, and many of us in this room are not scientists, and we need to rely on a person who is an expert. And I believe they're actually going to go overseas for this person, so that there is in no way at all this person in any way, shape or form can be linked in any way to either the proponent or the community, so that it is as objective an assessment as possible. And also the other information to update of the community is that it is going to be referred to the Planning and Assessment Commission. It is an independent body to the government, and it is set up. It is set up under legislation, under our government's legislation, when we first got to government, because this is the reality, was that when we got to government, the current legislation had a part in it called Part 3A, which empowered the then planning minister to sign off. Now, the then planning minister could sign off at his own discretion without any checks or balances, really. And so what that led to, towards the end of the days of the Labor government, was that there was a tendency for developers to think that if I get on good with the planning minister, if I give some donations, he's going to go my way. Now, that's just not fair. And so we've done our best to actually try and make this whole assessment process for every DA to be as above board, transparent, fair and consultative. So my time's now up, but I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I live in Western Sydney. I'm raising my family in Western Sydney. I have very, very strong concerns that the proponents' claims are actually real or accurate. My concerns are there. They've not been solved, and I'm here to hear from you. So please provide your details so I can stay in touch with you. And thank you very much for your time tonight.